Hi, Paul, and welcome. I'm very happy that we have the chance to have this conversation
Yeah,
about
thanks,
embodiment,
Lena.
about embodiment. And I need to admit that when we started thinking about the content of the Empowerment Day, and we were thinking about the individual empowerment. So first thing that came to my mind was embodiment. And I'm curious, so what would you say is the biggest misunderstanding people have about embodiment?
Well, that's something they're not doing already. I mean, we can't not be embodied. So it's a question of learning how to bring that embodiment, the way we are showing up, um, to learning how to do that and have some more choice than sometimes we have over how we're showing up. Um, because our bodies can react quicker than our mind in many ways. It's something that embodiment is something we all do. We all have. It's part of our human design. So it's really bringing awareness to how we are embodied and offering ourselves more choice. And many of the possibilities that get created for us are sometimes much greater than what we're actually accessing in any moment. There's a lot of possibility for play in many ways, like experiments. Maybe that's not the best way of saying it, but it's not something we have to learn afresh. We are embodied. In many ways, it's about accessing and remembering what we've forgotten. I think I could have said that better, but that's my answer right now.
Mhm. And maybe you can share a bit of the story, your story. So, how happened that you got in touch with embodiment and started, working with that and learning about that?
In some ways, it was because my body was doing things I didn't want it to be doing. Like I'd get nervous at an exams or when I was playing sports, and you know, my mind was trying to control it, but it was not helping in any shape or form. But it's like, so what's the link between mind and body? And then I loved watching kung fu movies about how the Eastern way of managing the Eastern mind would somehow manage the body. So I got very curious about that. I started a little bit work with Tai Chi, studying Tai Chi a little bit, just out of that curiosity. And then when I started professionally into coaching, I worked with a process called the Inner Game, which was developed by Timothy Galloway, which was all
Mhm.
about quietening the critical mind, what he called self-one, to allow the natural wisdom of the body to come through. And I think this was such a powerful thing. It's like we have a lot of wisdom and potential in the body, which doesn't always show through because of what's going on in our mind. Our anxiety about something, need to perform, I need to show that we're able. So the mind is trying to control something, but there's a different story in the body sometimes. And if we can quiet some of that critical mind in particular, what comes through in the body and what comes through in our whole being really is is more like our better self. And I think one thing I want to just add around embodiment is that my interest in embodiment is really about the whole being, is the whole person. But often the body is missed out of the conversation, and it's bringing the body into the conversation with the emotions, with our cognitive abilities, and so that we all show up in that kind of integrated way. This is about integration. And my work as a coach has always been that frame of integration. And then when I did my NLP training, I really, that really helped me also focus in on, perhaps because of my a little bias towards the somatic work. I really, that really helped me refine some of my embodiment perspective. I know often NLP is approached almost a little bit more cognitively, but for me, it was, yes, It's fantastically cognitively, but it's also very much embodied state. And I know in Erickson coaching, I think you reference NLP a lot to Milton Erickson, but John Grinder said that NLP was all about state. I mean, how we manage our state, and that has to be a physiological thing.
Mm.
And I think for me, embodiment is very much about that. How do we manage our state? And then people like Judith Delosier in NLP and Steve Gilligan, they bring a strong amount of the physiological perspective along with the cognitive. So I love this mind-body cohesion. And we can work top down, if you like, from the mind down, but we can also work from the body up because we're a whole system. And I think a lot of embodiment work is reminding us that we can work this way up. It's not just this way down, and that the body responds quicker than the mind. Physiology, neuroscience, the new biology, all that's pointing that direction.
Mm.
So if we want to be working with the whole person, we have to work with the whole person. That's the embodiment as well as just the cognition.
Yeah, I also working with mainly with leaders. I also notice how much they are, try to stay in their heads and, be logical. And then how powerful is when, I support them to connect with the body and how completely different and very fast, as you said, things are happening when people connect with the body. I was thinking, what is a good personal example that you have for a situation when you was realizing, so my body knows something, but my mind.
I think this is something we all have really when in English, we talk about having a gut feeling.
Mm,
So it's our language, and there's like, oh, I can't stomach that. It's so something, the body's responding, and then we trying to make sense of it. And this is also a view on emotions, that I forgot her name now. It'll come back to me. The woman who wrote Elisa Feldman Barrett,
yeah, how emotions are made.
How Emotions Are Made. She says that she describes how things happen in the body first, and then we give emotional labels to it.
Yeah.
And she gives a great example of feeling something in the body. And when she was out on a date with somebody and she was getting all hot, I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah, I love this example.
Yeah. And she thought, well, she didn't really want to go on the date. She thought, well, maybe I do love this or like this person. And maybe I will have a second date. And then they left it. And then the next morning she woke up and she was hot sweats because she was unwell.
Yeah.
And this was a misinterpretation of the signals. And I think, so there's a lot of messages come through the body, but when we're busy in the mind, and our mind gets so rewarded for all of us in the outside world, in the world of today, when we're missing some of the we're missing some of the signals. We're missing the yeses. We're missing the nos. We're overriding that because we've got something set in here which we've got to do, and there's a huge amount of pressure to just get things done, and it's in many ways it's understandable strategy that this is what gets rewarded, so we miss this, but we're missing what's in the body. We miss signals, but we miss a lot of power as well. We miss a lot of the energy that's in our system, a particular way of knowing to support our brain. It's like when the energy is good in the body, it kind of frees up the brain in a way. It's like our prefrontal cortex works much more clearly when we're anxious and concerned about things. We get much more into survival mode, which maybe we can start to talk about. And that takes us away from our prefrontal cortex. It takes us away from our creative thinking. So managing what's going on below actually supports our brain functioning.
In this context, so what would you say? Uh, we can learn or we can use for individual empowerment from the embodiment? So what is the most important thing that we can pay attention in order to be empowered as a human being, as an individual?
It's first is the awareness of what you could say, what state you're in now. What's this? Because whatever state we are in influences what we're able to say and perceive and do. It shapes our thinking. We all know when we're feeling depressed, there's a particular sort of the world goes a bit grey. When we're feeling good, it tends to brighten up. But that with those feelings, there's a posture, there's a breath, there's a certain breath pattern. And one of the most direct ways of affecting how we are showing up, what we're able to do in any moment is through the breath and through posture. And this is part of the fundamentals of embodiment work, is understanding how the way we're physically using ourselves shapes what's possible for us to do. And not just as individuals, but the relationships we create. And this refers in a great deal to the autonomic nervous system, which I expect many of your listeners, like coaches, will really have a good understanding of. But the autonomic nervous system really lays underneath everything that we do. And that embodiment is very much concerned with creating our capacities to work with that nervous system, to shift ourselves from anxious, fearful, doubtful states into something which is to be much more resourceful, where we shift in polyvagal terms, if people are familiar with that, to what we call a ventral vagal state, or in coaching, we'd know much more as a flow state. And we can use our body to help facilitate that, because often the mind cannot change the mind under stress. But the body can actually make that shift for us.
And sorry. Our motivation to create the Empowerment Day was to, create space where we can talk about, discuss, and develop good solution about the challenges that leaders nowadays have. And of course, being aware that in this very fast, very that we are living. So my observation is that many people start operating on something that the way, like I call it, the autopilot. And I'm wondering, so how would you recognize in the body that someone does autopilot leadership or is on autopilot?
Well, I think that autopilot can show up in different ways depending on the person. But what gets rewarded today is that autopilot, which is quick, really focused. And what that is when we are focused in our intention, we're also tends to be focused in our body. And it's a little bit like this, that sort of energy. So what that means when we're focused on this, we tend to miss what's to the sides. That focus of energy takes us a little bit, almost like we're leaning out of ourselves, and we have no time. In the simple metaphor of the breath, this is expressive out breath, and we're not spending enough time taking the in breath. And so, this is how we get depleted. And it doesn't take long to take the in breath and then take the out breath. So this busyness, which I can get into when on a daily basis, I can catch myself being busy and I tighten a little bit. There's a contraction in my system because I'm focusing, and that our system is designed to contract when we need to do something and then release, but we're not getting the release time so much. And yet when we think, I haven't got time for this, I haven't got time for release, but a simple out breath can release some of that buildup. Simple recognition. It's a little bit when we tend to contract as well, because in a sense, what's getting stimulated is sympathetic nervous system, which gets in the fight, flight, achieve. And again, it's like, and that tightening. So breath out, little bit of stretching, even something simple like that can just shift the system a little. A little 1 or 2% shift is better than no shift at all. So what also happens, what we know from the studies of the nervous system, when we are really focused and busy like that and quite contracted in our intention, as I said, we're missing often the more peripheral, which is more creative dimensions of ourselves. But the contraction tends to create a separation in the relationship with others. Basically through tightening, we contract and we separate. We have to, but with the in-breath, with the out-breath and the relaxation, there's something about opening here and we get more relational. So the balance between the in-breath and the out-breath is a very simple metaphor of what this embodiment is about. But we're out of balance with a little too much like this and not enough like this. So just this simple move is really at the heart of this work, recognizing when we are tight, when we're so busy that we're kind of lost off, we can lose our feet on the ground as well. It's like we're all up here, we're not down here. It's all about balance. Balance between the in-breath and the out-breath, the up and the down, the forward and the back. And flow states are actually relaxed states. They're intentional, but they're also relaxed. And this is part of what we're aiming for, taking the body into these high performance states at choice when we want to. It's not that we're going to stay there all the time. We also want the much more rest and restoration phases. But we have to create this choice. This is all about pausing and choosing. What state do I need to invite right now? And how the breath and posture and that general embodied awareness can bring that. So I often talk about the idea of being centered, which is probably something which is understood by many. And this embodiment work that I offer is not about, I don't feel in a good state, I need to go and take myself off to a private space to be able to do that. This is practice. How do I bring it in, do it in the moment? When someone's just said something to me, which is really, as I say, triggered me into a negative state in some way, how do I shift that so that I don't respond from that negativity, but I am and reactivity, but I respond from a more balanced and yet powerful and clear space. So it's very choiceful in the moment work, as well as having this longevity of approach in the moment and over time.
And I mean, now when I was listening you explaining this thing, and I notice how I move with you, which creates a different experience. Yeah, very very interesting observation that I made now while
Yeah,
you.
that's great. That's and did you recognize the energy differences just simply through some of those movements?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So first thing was when you addressed the posture. So I noticed that I immediately changed my posture. Yeah,
Mm.
and then of course with the other movements. So that's why I guess that's why I noticed it, because it there was a change in what's happening on my side.
Yeah.
Working with different people, would you say that you notice some kind of a change in people's attention and nervous system in the last years? And if yes, what was changed?
I think people generally are much more having conversations and about the nervous system. I think it's much more part of the media right now to talk about such things. And I think that bringing awareness to it, it feels like it's much more part of the zeitgeist to be talking about it. I certainly feel that when people are coming to my workshops, that they're coming with that inquiry more strongly than they've done previously. But I love running my workshops. They're I do a lot of purely cognitive work, but when I'm working in an embodied way, that is my preferred way. It's because of this holistic thing. But I always approach it as best I can. And it's easier in open workshops. And sometimes if you're doing it inside an organization who always want answers, it's all about inquiry in many ways. How am I doing what I'm doing? It's not so much about fixing. As soon as we fix, we get into try hard, and try hard creates its own tension. And our head goes, I should create tension in the system. And so there's a way of how do we organize the inquiry so that we're discovering what's possible. And part of that inquiry and discovering is actually releasing and softening into the inquiry. And I know there's a lot of things, oh, this is all soft work, but actually a lot of power comes through softness in the body. Martial arts know this. Quite a bit of what I do is based on martial arts or derived from those ideas. And softening is really powerful. It allows energy to flow through. As soon as I tighten, we're restricting energy, or I'm restricting my mind. How to release that? Now, if I think about raising myself up, but I tighten my muscles, that doesn't work. I'm just tight. If I almost like invite my height, invite my width, invite my depth, invite myself to be on the ground, grounded. Somehow it kind of just comes along. It's not it's simple work in many ways, but it does need attention and it does need practice. Because over all of our lifetimes, we've grown up in a Western culture of strive, drive. In spiral dynamics, it's that orange level.
Yes.
Yeah. And the interesting about, or what Claire Graves called ER, is that there's no end game. There's always more, there's always better. And so it's like, how do we release ourselves from some of that strive, drive energy? It's like, otherwise we're going to, as people are, they're burning out. So we can go about achievement, but from a different physiology, a different mindset, and different body set, and still get the results, but without the damage to our systems and not to our personal systems, our relational systems, our ecological systems. This is not separate from those bigger questions, because this embodiment work for me is about how we're showing up and the life we're creating, the world we're creating. When we can learn to find that power in ourselves, as martial artists do, particularly through centering, soften, release that. And also, when I talk about centering, I talk about centering in relationship. We're centering in the relational field. And when power gets shared, it is so much more creative than power which is kept to oneself. So, but that sharing of power challenges us to be open. But open for many of us means doesn't feel safe. And our nervous system is primary. It's either looking up for signs of danger or signs of safety. And in the world out there, most of the time, there's signs of danger,
Mm.
and which creates this contraction, this separation, this fight, flight, or this collapse. And yet, the work that you do, I'm sure all your colleagues do, that many coaches are seeking to do, is to create this sense of safety in our teams, in organizations, in ourselves. And given that the body, our nervous system reacts quicker than the mind, it's going to take us into that those signals of danger much more quickly than the mind chooses it. And there's so many low-grade stressors.
Mhm.
No, just getting the kids off to school on time, stop misbehaving, sort of thing. There's there's a tightness, and then the bus is late, etc.
Mhm.
So if we can use the body to support us, and the body can recognize when we're in these contracted states and shifting into this a state which is much more open and expansive, and the physiology can really help us there, and along with awareness, then we're going to create bring a different, better, some of our better selves to the world, and the relational space with others. Yeah.
Mhm.
Seems to me I'm talking a lot more than I normally talk. I hope it's making sense. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just thinking now because you mentioned relationship, you mentioned safety, and I'm wondering how leaders can use this knowledge, use embodiment to be more effective in working with the teams. Because from the science in the last years, a couple of years, so there's a lot of proof that psychological safety is the foundation for well performing, high performing teams. And I'm wondering how our leaders can use also embodiment in order to make this possible.
Yeah. Well, where does psychological safety come? Where's safety felt? It's not felt here, it's felt in the body.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a, I mean, the work of Amy Edmondson, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Um, it's that I think psychological safety maybe takes us a little bit too much up here. That safety is ultimately felt, is a felt sense, is not a cognitive sense. But it's really important. It's like if your boss walks into the room and they're really agitated and angry or something, that state, as we know, through co-regulation, our defenses will come up in some way.
Mm.
You know, so that so how he's embodied his state affects our state, and then we have a choice whether to stay in that defensive mode or whether to find ourselves, again, to use the simple phrasing, and center ourselves into choiceful response rather than reactive.
Mhm.
So again, breath, posture, releasing tension, releasing that almost immediate pattern of reactivity, really to regain our agency. Because if that person has come in and created that atmosphere in the room, then in some ways, like, does he have agency over us because of his mood? Or do we choose to find our own power through our own agency by shifting our state into how we want to be? And that is, the body needs to be part of that shift, using head and heart and gut, the whole body system. Then we can come back into a point of power and choice and agency rather than reactivity. Yeah, I'm not sure whether I'm answering your question around psychological safety, but
Yeah, but
it's
what I taking away here is that it's also so important for leaders to be aware so how they show up and how they feel, experience, and their body in order also to create, to be part of the creation of the safety for their people. So I like
yeah,
that a lot, and
absolutely.
I'm curious how many leaders are aware about that. that it makes a difference how you enter the room, how you enter the space, even it's physical or even online space, and how
Yeah.
they can influence the whole energy and safety.
Yes. I mean, this is what I would call leadership presence.
Mm.
Um, but it can also be that, when you get home from work and your partner are saying, well, just reading you and creating atmosphere straight away. It's like, and we have a choice to stay in that or to to move up, shift our state.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying it's always easy, um, but with awareness and practice and your choice of how you want to be in any moment, the body is the most direct influencer, and the imagination is also helps in this, curiously. So often you're thinking about a meeting or meeting somebody in particular. So we know the brain is predictive. So imagination, predictive dimensions in our brain. They think of something or think of somebody, and that creates a state. And so when I want to make a shift, sometimes I make the shift and but I have a particular imagination to help me support that shift, physiological
Right.
shift. So I'll bring them both together, um, to, to bring that through. So I think physiology, and emotion and imagination can work really powerfully together, or negatively together. Again, it's about choice. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. I would like to bring another element in our conversation because we are now
Hmm.
in the era of AI. And what I'm noticing, for myself, that is like everything is somehow speeding up. Yeah, it becomes. I mean, someone people say so. AI support us, to do less work, be more effective, and all these things. But what I noticed by myself that actually by using AI, it's I do much more because maybe I do things faster and then I have space for more to do. And this is somehow speeding all this thing up. Yeah. And I'm wondering from your experience, so what should we humans do to slow down and even to say to protect ourselves in this environment of
Okay.
speed?
I assume you're sitting on a chair.
Yes.
Yes. If you let yourself lean back against the back of the chair, do you recognize the change in speed from sitting now sit forward?
Ah, you mean, yeah, it's a different speed if you mean that. So when I go back
Yeah.
and when I come forward, yeah.
Yeah. So this coming forward, it's like speed and achieving takes us always forward,
Mm,
leans always forward into life, and always it invites speed. The world invites speed. And again, it's a bit like the manager coming into the room. Do we let that kind of completely take over our own rhythm, or do we again find some choice? Okay, yeah, I'm been here, but now I need to be here.
mm,
And here we are much more reflective. I'm not sure this is something I should bring in, but I will. Because of my Tai Chi and Taoist influence interests, I consider yin yang quite a lot in terms of the way I perceive things. And, you know, we kind of know that the world tends to reward yang energy, that forward momentum, going, get, focus. And the more yin, feminine principles is much more receptive, relational, and um, as a slower rhythm. So it's again, how do we balance the masculine principles and energy with the feminine?
mm,
And they talk about Mother Earth, so that's coming down. And again, so much energy, people's energy, I find, in the way the physiology is that it's always forward, achieve, achieve, achieve. I'm not taking. this time. So I think AI can draw us into this, this again, just enhance this process of forward and up all the time, always up, always more, always forward. But we're missing this. We're missing the systemic relational dimensions. So it's not either or, it's an and.
Mm.
But we're slightly out of balance. Well, maybe more than slightly out of balance.
Yeah, I'm noticing you mentioned now a couple of times balance.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a key aspect of this work. Balancing our cognition with our emotional intelligence, with our gut intelligence, balancing the forward and the back, the up and the down, and masculine and feminine principles. It's like we often talk, we want people, you often people, we want work-life balance, but I think what they're really wanting is some of the balance, that this more general balance, which can provide this enlivened conversation between activity and rest
Mhm.
through making something, creating something in the world, and then sitting back and admiring it.
As the Empowerment Day is something we created as an experience, and of course, there
Mhm.
will be experiencing empowerment with you during the Empowerment Day. So, my question is, what do you hope people stop doing after they experience empowerment?
I don't know that I can, I think the only thing I can say is I hope they stop dismissing that the body is not part of the conversation. What I hope is that they get curious
Mhm.
and discover. And when I run my workshops, I don't give much for the head. I mostly offer experience, and that's all. And people make complete sense of that themselves, and they don't need the models, but they are exploring all those leadership models and theories without having to cognitively reference them.
Mm.
Yeah. So I think I'd love people to come with curiosity. I'm sure some of the participants will have already a good experience, a good knowledge and experience of this somatic embodiment work. But primarily, I would invite play and curiosity and a sense of discovering what's possible through this integrated embodied approach. And in some ways, embodiment is about reminding ourselves of what's already in our system. It's not that we're creating something new. It's already here. It's just that often the way we've needed to be in the world has created a distance between many of the resource, a gap between how we're showing up and many of the resources that we have, but we've lost contact with. No, we're just
Mm.
working with our human design. So we're getting a little bit more conscious engagement to use that human design in the way that is most nourishing for ourselves and others.
And as we are coming to the end of our conversation, um, I'm curious. So, what is your favorite tiny practice that supports you to connect again if you disconnect from your body? In these cases, when you're busy, when you're maybe under pressure.
Well, I have this, my personal is a particular centering practice that I do because I've done it so much. It's, I have, I've, I've shortened it into a very simple thing, but it's kind of like if I kind of open my, and then go, so I'm kind of opening my space a little, bringing the
Mm,
energy up and then settling. So there's this
mm,
in breath, out breath. So this is when I get particularly agitated or just need to calm myself.
Mhm.
So breath, a little bit of posture shift, and movement, breath, posture, movement and that actually that's like an anchor
Mhm.
for the state.
And as a final question of our conversation, thinking about what you prepared for your workshop on the Empowerment Day, um, what would you say? Who is this workshop perfect for, and who might feel comfortable with that in a good way, of course?
Uh, This workshop, basically, we're dealing with the human body, so we've all got one of those. So it's for everybody, but it does not require any level of fitness. It doesn't require, you know, sometimes people have lost contact with the body because, they weren't good at sport or something. No,
Mm.
that is not relevant in any shape or form. No, we all have a body, and it's something that would benefit from our attention. And I don't mean through diet or physical fitness, just through a little bit of awareness. And it's surprising what we can find with some very simple practices. So in some ways, I think this work can get dismissed because it's quite simple. Um, but then it does take a little bit of practice in the sense of, you know, we've all developed our habits in a
Mm.
particular way to hold not just our mind, but our body holds those habits as well. When we have um, so it's discovering what our habitual patterns are in our body as well as our mind, and then coming to a point of, is this useful or not in this context? If it's not, how do I make a shift? So it's awareness, living. It's awareness in action, and that is the key thing here. This is always in action. It's in action. Yes, we can be mindful, sit quietly, um, but the gift of this work, I think, is like to be able to do it in the moment when we need it. And yeah, it's for anybody who wants to inquire and to play, um, and discover possibility. And if it doesn't work for them, it doesn't work for them. But um, I I I generally don't find that to be the case. There's always something to be found. Um, and this is not my creation as well. It's like this this work is built on all sorts of neuroscience and Eastern traditions and so many people. This is not something I've created. It's something which has my flavor because I've curated things. For me, it reflects age-old wisdom and our own wisdom, which we've just lost a little connection with.
Great. I'm really looking forward to make this experience. And Paul, thank you very much for your time today, and of course for your commitment to support the participants through the Empowerment Day. I'm really looking forward to meeting you in Vienna soon. Thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to it too. Thanks, Magdalena.